Hello, everybody. My name's Kate Foggo. This is Julie Hurt, and together we are making light to humans being. And today's topic is a big one. I think we'll have to start with the definition, but today's topic is going to be how spiritual am I? So I think the first thing we have to do, Julie, is not necessarily a definition, but what is your understanding of being spiritual?
My definition of, I don't know if I've really thought about it in a concise.
Well, that's what I mean, understanding rather than definition.
Okay, understanding. So spirituality to me, or being spiritual, isn't organized religion. So
Read.
You can be part of organized religion. You can go weekly or however often to church. You can seek the guidance of a religious leader. That's not exclusive. I mean, it's not, being spiritual is inclusive, not exclusive. So to me, because I actually don't participate in organized religion, spirituality to me means connected to the greater and higher good. It looks, for me, it means that there are practices that I have, like taking walks with Lucas is, to me, I'm realizing a spiritual practice. It's not just a walk with the dog. It's realizing that we're connected to something far greater than ourselves, that we are actually all in this together, that we're not separate. And it's also the ongoing practice of moving from a fear-based culture, fear-based mentality, because I'll bring it back to me, to one of based in love and all that entails. So there's a lot to it. Creativity to me can be a spiritual practice. It's a lot. There's a whole lot of stuff to me in that.
And I would agree with that. I'm actually, I was going to say, less tolerant of the organized religion. I'm not sure that I would even consider it spiritual, frankly, because it's based in human rules rather than
if you get into
a genuine. That's judgmental of me to say that. There are, of course, people who are spiritual. But yeah, it's a tricky one, but I agree. But to me, it is more about, I would expect somebody who I think is spiritual to just be a lot more aware of meeting people where you find them. So not being judgmental, or trying not to be as judgmental, not getting sucked in. But these are spiritual behaviors. I don't even know if they define spirituality, but that to me is someone who doesn't get involved in gossip. You know how sometimes you meet people and they're just nice to be around. You probably wouldn't invite them to a party, but if you were going to a funeral or you wanted a grown up, they're the people you'd want to be around. People are that. And I suppose that's just a calm energy. Is that spirituality? I don't know. I think I'd associate that with being spiritual, in that people who are more aware and are more tolerant are less likely to get fizzy and aggressive and worked up about nonsense, and therefore they are more pleasant to be around. But it's quite vague, but also quite defined in some ways, like this idea that you have to practice at it.
Yeah, like yoga, which I do think you do. Any one of us can practice at it. But that's what trips me up, is that, last week we talked about expectations, and I was putting expectations on myself about creating a spiritual practice. So I was thinking of it in terms of, okay, this, I have to make sure I meditate and I journal and I automatic write and I do all these things as a spiritual practice. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, okay, because my mornings are not always the same. Every now and then I'll have to take Brad to work. And when that happens, I'm out of my waking up routine and all that good stuff. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, and I do that. And I'm thinking, all that. So I put all this pressure on me again, like we talked about last week. And so the other day I was out walking in the preserve, and And I'm thinking, okay, spiritual practice. And I'm like, and all of my guides are like, yeah, what you're doing now. Because every morning I do try, unless our schedules get wonky, every morning Lucas and I take a walk in the preserve, just the two of us, and we're quiet. Well, sometimes I talk with him or the deer. That's another story. And I'm like, oh, this is for right now. This is the spiritual practice. Movement for me helps. Being able to be among flowers and trees, and I talk to all of them and the deer and Lucas, and we're just all having a, little, hi, how you doing? Good morning. Just being with each other kind of thing. I'm like, oh, that's my
Start disconnecting from other stuff. Well, I mean, look at our friend Sally Hokey, who's now writing a book. I mean, she does all her spiritual work while she's walking. She has conferences with her guides when she's out walking. There's someone else as well I know that does it when they're out walking. It's one of the animal communicators. I can't remember.
Okay, yeah. And Sally, we'll put her info in the show notes too, but she'll do it when she's driving too. I would meet her when we lived up north. I would meet her for lunch or something. She'd get out of the car and she'd tell me all the things her guides had told her on the way down, to come see me. So yeah.
You see, there's an example. Immediately now I feel less spiritual than you because I don't have those conversations with my guides. I have to go and find my guides, and actually at the moment anyway, I don't feel like, well, it's not that I don't feel I have that connection, but I don't have that explicit conversation. Like I try to, and then it just I get distracted.
Well,
I find it really.
Yeah. And this is like an expectation that I do too. Like, I think I need to sit down every morning and have an explicit conversation with my guides or the angels or whoever decides to show up, ascended masters, name it. And then, but I start to do the practice and then it doesn't stick. So clearly this is something I'm learning. It's not necessarily for me. The thing I have to watch for is that then I start to solve a problem with the mind that got me into the problem. And that doesn't work, right? What I realize is when I'm walking and I'm with Lucas and I'm out in nature, they can pop in. So it's not like I sit and have a conversation, like, okay, now I'm walking. And so now we're going to have a conversation. I'll just be walking along and then I get like, they'll be there. I can hear them, if that makes sense. I don't intend. Does that mean I'm not like intending?
It does. And I was going to say that's really what the spiritual practice is the fact that you are disconnected and that you have no expectations of the next few seconds. And you will not believe this, Julie, but that parcel has arrived. He could have come at any time today, but he came now.
So and we'll just pause this for now and come right back. You're welcome back, Kate, from getting your package.
I knew that was going to happen. As soon as I saw the email, I was like, oh, typical, isn't it? Like, how do they know? And I've lost my thread now. What were we talking about? How spiritual we are.
How spiritual we are. And we were talking
about
connect, yeah.
So I think it's the fact that when you're walking, I got that today, not walking. What was I doing? So I do now every day. Now this is motivated by a sort of combination of, I suppose it is spiritual practice. First of all, I do the healing codes, which is a sort of, and that takes 6 minutes. And I've stuck with it, even though I don't think it offers me anything over and above what I do with the body code, which I found to be much more effective and stuff like that. Not much more effective, but the promises I get when I read about these things, it's like I've already had those advantages because I've been healing for so long. So they may do wonderful things for people who've never done them before. But I keep the practice because it's 6 minutes of brain stop. And I usually end up chanting something random. I have focused it on abundance. That gives me more of an incentive than just being a good person, and that's more about, so I will say, just to start me off, I'll probably go, I'm really happy and excited that the shed is getting more bookings. I'm really happy and excited that I'm getting more, and I just go into a gentle rant, but I do that. So I do that for 6 minutes, and then I do this, which is Paul McKenna's book. So it's like I've photocopied them, so I've got 4 to a page. And it's 4 things that, so the exercise were 4 things that if you had unlimited funds, like what would you do with it? And you just write a bit about it. So what it's turned into for me is 4 subjects where I just go into an appreciation. I just write appreciation. So for me, it and that takes another 8-9 minutes. And I've stuck to these practices 3 times a day because I think they give me the downtime of. So like today I didn't meditate just because I had so much to do, and I was, you know what it's like when you're updating your website, you're terrified of leaving it in a state where it's half done and half not done, because so, you know, updating stuff, I updated all my prices and everything, and oh my god, I have to update it all in my scheduling as well, and then it's like, oh my god, that affects this, and then it affects this, and suddenly you're in like, so I didn't meditate today, but I did sit on my beautiful massage chair for 50 minutes. I think that counts. But yeah, there is an element of goodness or godliness associated with spirituality, which I think is bogus completely and utterly, because actually all these practices are to make you feel good. It's not about being a good person, it's about you.
Right. Because the premise of, I don't know if it's the premise of spirituality or how best to say this, but it's all within us. We're the divine having a human experience. So how can we look inward, quiet our mind and look inward? And so however that works for whomever, that's what it's about. But we have these, we just put these, we have to read these books, we have to do this practice, we have to buy. This is something else that I just realized, I guess. So I was at the Omega Institute, and they have a bookshop. Hello, me and bookshops, hello. So, but I walk in and they also have a whole lot of other things like crystals and beads to wear, and scarves and meditation cushions and clothing and all this. And a lot of the things, like the little statues of goddesses or whatever, and the beads and the crystals, they all have special meanings. So you could easily, like for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I have that, then this will happen. Or if I do this, then that'll happen. If I have this specific feather, that means this. Or, which is interesting because it's like, I could go down a consumer rabbit hole with all the things that if I have them, I will be okay. And at the same time, I've subscribed to this being minimalist. I've followed this guy for like 3-4 years. Because we want to live small, like we continually move into smaller houses. We eventually want to go full-time in the RV at some point, or something else, we'll see. But anyway, but all the things I don't need, right? So I'm starting to do another purge right now. Plus it's the equinox tomorrow. So that's the equinoxes are good times to purge and get rid of stuff. So anyway, but it's just interesting to me how, if it's within us, I don't think I need the crystal. Like, yes, I don't disagree that crystals have energy. We don't
need any of this stuff. It's like all these courses, like you can see that in me.
Right.
I'm like, but if I do this course, that's the one. It's like all these fucking healing methods I do, like the healing codes I have stuck with, not as I say, not because of the value it brings in terms of the healing, which is, it can't be doing any harm, but it's in the terms that it gives me 6 minutes. And because I have told myself that if I don't do this 3 times a day, then my abundance can't happen. So I'm living under a fucking whip here as well, and at times I resent it, but I also know it's a good practice to do. That's why I maintain it. You know, you're talking about buying stuff, books, training courses. Oh my god, did you say that you had recently signed up for Hay House? Don't do it. There's like 6 gazillion things you could do that would make your life better today. Your life would be better. I mean, I really wanted to do that Eva Baronis course, and I was gonna and I didn't do it, and actually I haven't even opened her emails since then. And yet 2 weeks ago I thought I would die if I didn't do her course.
I know.
She had that magic elixir. And it's stupid because I think all these things can help to a degree, that there, you know, anything that cracks your mind open a little way. But I also think you get to the stage where, like we're at, where the big gains, you've already got them. There's not going to be one more thing that's going to make it all fall into place with you. Now it's a little shuffling journey, I think. You know, it's so frustrating when you meet people who go, oh, I read this book and it changed my life. But we had that moment. It was just a long time ago. And, you know, and then your life gets better and then you want more. And it's always going to be like that. I mean, that's the Abraham Hicks thing. You're never going to be satisfied, because when you're satisfied, you're dead.
Right.
If you don't have that urge to keep going and keep looking and keep finding more, then life isn't worth living. So there's all, you know, you can never get to a point where you go, oh, that's it, I've arrived. It's just not going to happen.
No, she says all the time, the work is never done. The work is never done. Yeah.
So what we forget is how far we've already come, and that actually any gains we get at this stage are unlikely to be earth-shattering. I might be wrong, and then you can all write in and tell me about your earth-shattering revelations you've had. But I must admit, I get a bit cynical. I mean, I know I'm a sucker for it. I'm a sucker for any course that promises me something that I feel has eluded me thus far. I'm an absolute sucker for it. I thought the healing codes would sort my life out. I thought Paul McKenna would sort my life out. Neither of them have. They have brought good things, don't get me wrong, they really have. But nothing earth-shattering.
No. But you know, but negates everything that I said before that, or that you said. So I'm not saying but, I'm saying and. My guides just pinged me and said, whatever brings you joy. So like, and I'm thinking too, they're also reminding me of Ainsley MacLeod. So I have a soul, I forget what, there's different aspects to Ainsley MacLeod's work about soul level that you are, soul age, soul level, soul type, soul path, journey, something. And I realized that I'm on this lifetime, I chose a path or mission or something of knowledge, which is why I love to read and why I love to listen to podcasts. And I just absorb like all these different things. So I just have to be that, because he brought this up a couple weeks ago, this particular path or mission. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the one that I'm on. So it gave me, like, it allowed me to go, oh, it's okay that I like to, because I get dinged. My husband says I'm always having input. And I just enjoy listening to new ideas and new ways of thinking, like we were talking about Gabor Mate before we got on the call in his new book, which we may come back to at some other point. But there's just new ways of thinking, and I find that so cool, but it brings me joy. So the guides are like, whatever brings you joy is a spiritual practice. So walking with Lucas brings me joy. The reading, just reading a book can be a spiritual practice because it brings me joy. And I think that's part of what we have to. So if buying something may not bring me, it might bring me joy in the moment, but if the joy doesn't last, then it's probably not the thing. And classes too. I just got a new class from Marianne Williamson, who does A Course in Miracles, which I do follow that every day. And those little meditations really help, because I see something new in them every single day. And this is the second year I'm doing it anyway. She's offering a new deepening your spiritual practice workshop. I'm tempted. But I also, a test of it too, is that I'm tempted, I check it out and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. But I've learned with my guides' help to like sit on it for a day or two. And if I feel myself keep wanting to open the email, then I'm like, yes. If I'm like, oh yeah, a week goes by and I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of it again, then I know wasn't meant to be for me.
But see, I struggled with that. And that was one of the things when we did that talk about not knowing what the right thing to do is. I get that a lot about courses. And I will sit with my guides and draw a blank basically, because what I think I'm getting from my guides, I don't know if I'm too involved in it, is do what you want, Kate. And it's like, but Kate doesn't know what she wants. Yeah. And it's like, well, but you've got to do what you want. You know, if you think this will help you, it will help you. If it, you know, but you probably know it all. I mean, you know, I know all that. I know that there's a very minute chance that somebody else is going to hand me the key of everything I need to know in my life to make it better, but it doesn't It doesn't stop me hoping. I used to play the lottery with my friend Ben. We still do it, although of course I don't know where the lottery numbers are, and if he won and I never hear from him again, I wouldn't know. But he does every now and then put a few shekels in my bank account and says, we won. We used to do Euro Millions. But before we'd done the Euro Millions, we did something else. This is when we actually worked together in the same building. And then he just came to me and said, we have to stop. I mean, we started doing it again, but we did something different. I can't remember. And he said, it's not that, what was it? He said, it's not the disappointment that's killing me, it's the endless hope. And that's almost the same with me. It's like I've just, when I read this stuff about Eva Bronius, I do think she's coming at it from a different angle than a lot of the stuff I've done, which is why I'm attracted to it, because it seems to be where I am right now. But it is highly unlikely that she's going to offer me that single gem that makes it all okay. And there's something else I'd done recently, and I was like, has it really helped? Really? Like, I put all this effort into something, I get so, and I'm like you, and I throw myself in 110%. I work myself really hard, whatever it is that I'm doing. Well, fucking healing codes for one. Like, what have they given me? I don't know, not a lot.
Yeah.
Really, have they? I don't know. Well, maybe they have. We'll see.
But it brings you joy, right? Yeah.
Well, no. We'll see. So reading all that spate I had of the abundance thing, of reading Napoleon Hill, and then doing that. If I have £30,000 in my bank account by July the 1st, 2020, January the 1st, 2023, then we'll know it's worked. But you see, I get something like that, and then I get into, yeah, but which bank account? Because I've got my personal bank account. We have a joint bank account. That doesn't count because that's for both of us. That's where all the outgoings come from. I have my Barking at the Moon bank account. I have the shared bank account. So which bank account? And that's what happens to me, is I then run off down some rabbit hole about, if I haven't defined exactly where this £30,000 is, how can it, and you're like, really, do you really think universal intelligence is sitting there going, well, Kate didn't decide what bank account, so I'm not sure we can honor that?
Because what if it's combined? I mean, you don't have to define it, because once you start to define it, like Mike Dooley calls it the dreaded house. So he says, yes. Right? So to me, it's almost like you could have a combination of an additional £30,000 across all your bank accounts.
Well, yeah, but see, if it was in a joint bank account, that's not mine, so I don't want, and that's where I fall down. It's like, it is actually, but then there's also, but I already have some money, not a lot, in my personal bank account. Just stuff like that. But you see, if Napoleon Hill, on the other hand, says, you need to be absolutely clear about what you want, whereas Abraham Hicks and for Mike Dooley and people like that are going, no, focus on the, I mean, they're all focusing on the end result. But Napoleon Hill, that's why when we did that chief definite aim, that's actually spelling it out. So yes, that's being more specific.
Yes, but there's still no house.
No house. Yeah. No. So see, that's nothing though. It's like Napoleon Hill and such, like, would they be considered spiritual practices? I mean, essentially the teachings are spirituality, but they're not couched in this hug a tree sort of way. They're very much focused around getting what you want. And actually, I think that's a closer definition of what we're trying to do, as opposed to calling it spirituality, is actually for us all to be successful. That's what we need to focus on, is making me as happy and as abundant as I can be. And that's an end to it, because everything else you put out into the world comes from there.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the practice should be being as fucking goddamn selfish as you can be. There you go. That's Kate's spiritual practice.
Yes. No, that's true. And selfish in terms of putting yourself first, which we're not taught to do by any means in this culture, particularly women.
And we are taught that selfishness is bad. And actually, even if you take what we perceive to be really selfish behavior, is it bad? No, it actually just goes against, from the day we're born, we are taught to please people.
Yeah.
We're taught to please our parents, we're taught to please our peers, then we go to school, and then we have a whole new group of people to please, and then we go to work and we have to please them. And then we have to please the government and we have to follow their rules, all of that.
Yeah.
Nobody ever just says, well, you see, you go sort yourself out, you'll be fine.
Yeah. The reason why I grabbed my journals, because yesterday I had a workaround pop up that related.
Congratulations.
Say what?
Congratulations.
Thank you. I realized, so this week we're teaching assistants for our teacher, Danielle McKenna, and I'm teaching a class where the students actually will do a reading and then we provide feedback on where they have opportunities to improve. It's a very supportive, it's not right or wrong. It's like, hey, you're doing really good here. Hey, this is an opportunity to tweak here. So we do these forms, and I realized I did them all. They like read feedback forms, and I did them all one way. And I had never asked her if she wanted them one way or the other way. I ended up picking a way, and actually she wanted the other way. But because I didn't even think to ask the question, and the forms are new this time around, I didn't even think to ask the question. I then had to redo the forms, which was okay. That's fine. And then something happened. Oh, and then even that was a misunderstanding, and I still did it. I had to do them 3 times. But what was interesting was I realized that when I am working with somebody and it's a new situation, like, so this is a new class in which I'm working with her on, I will typically not ask questions. I actually don't realize I have questions. I don't even think to clarify anything, because when I was younger, if I bothered certain people with questions, I was told to be quiet. I was told to figure it out myself, always told to figure it out myself. So I just go into a situation, I listen, I love active listening. However, I will find that I will listen and I'm like, yeah, I think I've got it. And then I'll be in the moment. I'm like, oh, I wonder what they want. Oh, well, I just need to figure it out for myself. And so all these things happen, and then come to find out I should have just opened up and asked a question, but it just triggers so much in me. So,
well, that's interesting, because I am exactly the opposite. And although it was very unsafe for me to ask questions and stuff like that, I am extremely pig-headed, and I was more worried about getting it wrong. So I will have 500 questions before you finished your sentence, because, so I am completely the opposite. So, it's funny, because again, if you'd known me as a child, and even me knowing me as a child, it's only with the work I've done now that I realise how unsafe I was, because I was a little arse. Like I was really bolshy, but I was terrified of getting it wrong. So I would have come across, I would never have known that I was insecure, but that was my workaround, but all based upon the lines that I was always right. I always had to be right. I had to get it right. If I got something, not me, never got any, don't even you go there, like, never wrong. So if it took 100 questions to get it right, and people used to get really annoyed at work because I'm very analytical. Well, hang on a second. When you say that, do you mean that, or do you mean that? And what I learned quite quickly, there's another of these things, like, people make jokes about you and you don't realize it. Like, I didn't really understand it. They go, okay, it's really black and white, isn't she? And they'd make jokes around it, and like I didn't know if they were being sarcastic or whether it was, like, I still, to this day, it's obvious now, really black and white. No, it's but yeah, so that's really it's really interesting, isn't it, that I would always be really down to the minutest detail. I'm paralyzed if I'm left to make a decision like that by myself. I'm then paralyzed, because if I did it this way, then what the fuck? And then other things, I suppose it's experience, isn't it? And other things I'd be like, I'll just do it that way, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And then if someone told me it was wrong, I'd be gutted. I would be gutted. I'd be inconsolable.
Well, what's interesting is that a spiritual practice is what got us to this ability to realize what's actually going on in ourselves too. So this whole, like, the soul level intuitive coaching that we do, or any of the type of introspection, spiritual type of things that you may do to look inward, can help illuminate the things that you are doing that may not work for you any longer in this lifetime. Like it's so fascinating that this communication thing is coming up, because it's coming up for Brad now too, because his kids will ask him or say something to him. And I can see that it's showing that there's opportunities for him to share more with them, to make himself clearer, to develop a deeper relationship. So it's interesting to me in that regard. And then this whole thing about questions for me.
So does your spiritual practice include telling Brad that opportunity?
No, it does not include telling.
Good. That's the right answer.
I know.
That's another thing, isn't it? This, I've been vigilant my whole life of it's my job, it's my duty to help other people to see where they've gone wrong. Like, get out of here, Kate. Who the fuck wants to be around someone like that?
Yeah.
But I'm a real know-all. But that was another workaround. It's not straying the point of it, but that's actually one of the points in my life. I would have been in my early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, or when my first husband Gary, and I can't remember what happened. His mum had got they were she was retired, and she looked after her daughter who couldn't work because for mental health issues, and she had twins, the daughters of and then there was Gary's brother, who was also not working. That was another conversation we're going to have about unpaid work, how these people are vilified by society, but actually they're fulfilling a role that nobody else can fulfill. But anyway, there's been some issue with the electricity bill, and they asked me to help because I'm like the clever one, I'm the intellectual one, and I can read a bill, and I remember getting that little rush of achievement because I could sort it out for them. Oh my God, I had no idea that was then going to rule my life, that I then become more and more integral to other people's lives because I fix things for them, because Kate will sort it out, but I get a real reward from being that person, and that's all a workaround. Yeah. But the only value I have in life is what can I do for you? How hard can I work for you? Pathetic. And it's taken me 50 years to realize. No, don't get me wrong, and there's a lot of people who have been genuinely grateful for the help I've given, and there's also been a shed load of people who've taken a fucking piss, if we're between you and me.
Yeah.
We shan't name them, but there we go.
No, this introspection, really a big spiritual path that I know for me, I haven't honored it or spiritual practice. I haven't really honored it as a spiritual practice. It's now, as we're talking about it, now I'm seeing even more things that we do. It doesn't have to be, I set aside 30 minutes in the morning, get a cup of tea, meditate, be with my dog. There's no prescription. There's no way to be who you want to be. It's so funny though, too, as you were saying all that, a friend of mine, we try to chat regularly, and we usually have these really deep conversations. She's super smart. She pointed out to me that a workaround, I guess I call it a workaround, is that I grew up in an environment where we were always told what to do. So there's a control aspect of it. And so I didn't realize that I did that too, that I told people, but I should have realized, because when we were going through intuitive coaching and getting certified, Danielle called out that I tend to spoon feed the information to the client instead of allowing them to come with the guide's help. We allow them to come to the realization and kind of help get them, and they talk this all out. But so I have to put in my intentions when I do a session is that I will not spoon feed the client. The animal will help, or the guides. But anyways, she was telling me about, it's interesting. She said, you were always told what to do. You're still told what to do by my family. Every member of my family tells me exactly what to do and how to do it. And then she's like, so then you go and you are trying to navigate that world. And at the same time, you're also telling them what to do, because I have expectations back of them as to what to do. And she's like, it's interesting that happens. And I'm like, oh my God, it hurt when she said it, because it's like, oh, but when it hurts, she nailed something, right? And that's why she's so smart. Anyway, so she told me afterwards, she's in another conversation, she's like, I'm sorry I said that. I'm like, no, I'm actually glad, because it made me see things in a completely different way. So that's also why, when you mentioned, do you tell Brad, this is what you need to work on? No anymore, because I learned that I grew up. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
And that in itself, I think, is a massive spiritual practice, in that I don't think you can do it consciously, but it's an awareness of the times where we want to do everybody else a favor and it's none of our business. I have learned this brilliantly through the coaching of somebody else, of when you see somebody else and you know, oh, my daughter did that, and you know, and I'm so worried about her daughter and the dog, and I'm like, it's none of your business.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to hear that, but it's none of your business. You're getting yourself all worked up over stuff you have absolutely no control over. But you know, the amazing thing is when she started letting go of all of that, the problems went away. You know, I'm not saying they all went away, but that she became, her relationship with them all has changed immensely, because her expectations have changed, because she's like, do you know what? You know, you do what you have to do and I'm over here, and they want to go over there now because that's a nicer place to be. And that's what's absolutely fascinating in watching people grow in this way, is that actually, do you know what the goal of all of it? I used to think that it was about being a nice person, but it's actually about being a happy person because you become nice. Like, there's no godliness in it. There's no good. Is godliness? Is that another conversation, or is that a well-known fact?
That's probably another I feel like that might be another conversation.
But this is it. We're all striving for goodness, and it's. I think Gary said this to me, and I nearly flipped. And you see, if I flip now, he'll go, "Oh, that's not very clear with spiritual practice, is it?" And I went mental at him. What was it? Because he keeps talking about these people, which is like me usually. What was it? These people, these idiots that haven't complained about the fuel prices. I'm like, what are we supposed to do? Like, we still need fuel. You can't not fill your car with fuel. And he's making it sound like everybody in the whole world except him is just blindly paying these ridiculous prices. And you're like, including you, actually. I haven't noticed you walking anywhere, Gary. I just flipped and thought, oh, that's not very spiritual. I've lost my thread. Sorry, I just had a little rant there, didn't I? Oh, yeah, I've lost my thread.
Oh,
it happens. I should be able to ask my guys, but I'm actually.
Good. You were talking about goodliness is godliness.
Oh, yes, and Gary had said something about, and he made some point about me trying to be good, and it really, because as that lady so beautifully said in Be Open, I wish I knew who she was or I could quote her, although it's a private group, so it's probably just as well I can't. She said, I've paid enough money in therapy not to need to be a good girl. I just thought that was brilliant. It's, you know, that's exactly it, is that the vast majority of us, at least in this arena, or the people that we attract, are people who have spent their entire lives trying to be good to the detriment of any shred of happiness they could ever have. And now it's like, don't want to be good. I want to be happy. It's all about being happy.
Exactly. Yeah, because good is someone else's definition.
Yeah, and it involves pleasing people.
Exactly.
It's all about pleasing people.
Yeah, it's a mark that's set outside of yourself. So if it's something set outside yourself, it's not, to some degree, it's not attainable. Like, and it may not even be sustainable. Like, to be good, what the hell does that even mean?
And so, but it's so hard. I mean, I say, going back to selfishness, we still, even with our training, when somebody behaves in a way that we perceive as selfish, it's unpleasant.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to be around people like that. And yet, actually, you know, selfishness is usually somebody choosing to do something that, as opposed to pleasing you, is that something I get in a muddle sometimes about this? It's like, well, where then are the expectations of society? What is acceptable for me to do or not to do for Gary? For example, brush my hair when Julie asks me to on the, you know, should I? Does it matter what Julie thinks of my hair? Really? No. Should I have to please her? You know, between Julie and my husband, I disappoint everybody every day. It's like, you know, but it's like that. You know, do I behave in a certain way that pleases me, or you know, how much do I what's the word, care how I impact other people. I mean, nobody really wants to be a complete ass either. Or maybe we should, I don't know.
Well, and I don't, to me, being an ass actually doesn't feel good. Not so much because of the reaction that I get, but if I sit and talk negatively about a person, like that brings my vibration down.
Agree. But I mean, things like, I think Gary noticed a hole in my trousers that's actually been there for about 5 years. And he's like, oh my God, I can't believe you actually sewed them up. You probably only paid £2 for them. So they're pajamas from Asda, and nobody else knows that. You know, just things like, if he gets embarrassed by the clothes that I wear, should I care?
No, because it's his stuff, not yours, right? That's his, he's triggered by it for some reason.
Well, not really. I mean, he doesn't care in the house and that, but if we go out, he will always, and I actually, it hurts me because he's not like that generally. Like he doesn't care about my hair, or he doesn't expect me to wear makeup, he doesn't expect me to wear a dress. You know, it's nothing like that, but he seems to draw some random line on holes in my clothes.
So that'd be interesting to understand why. Why do holes?
Because he thinks I look like a bag lady.
And why does that matter? Like that's for, but that's that's yeah. You
don't get him on and fight.
I know. Let's have Gary on as a special guest. Let's have
we should Brad. Do that. We should have Brad and Gary, and we'll have 20 questions for them, and all you people can write in questions. That's fine. We seem to stray from the path. Let's get back on
no spiritual path, but yeah. Well, okay. So here's how. So I'll just say a spiritual path, whatever that is, whatever the practice is. It's more about the spiritual practice. Whatever the practice is, to help you get to help not you, Kate, but you, the royal, everybody, you. I can't say royal anymore. That seems to be loaded right now too. The everybody, you spiritual practice is how does it? When do you realize that it's something, an opportunity to work on you, or a realization or an awareness about yourself versus an expectation from others, rules, dogma, all the things. And that's whatever that means for you is whatever brings you joy. That's a spiritual practice.
Mm-hmm. So I agree with that. I think that's good. I think that's good.
Well, good. Then we'll just end there if that's okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. That's fine. What's the time? Chickens in bed.
So yeah. So thank you for joining us this week on Making Light Two Humans Being. I'm Julie here. With me, as always, is the wise and very spiritual Kate Chicago. Regardless of however many holes in her pants she may have, doesn't matter. Anyway, join us every week when we create a new episode, have a new topic. If you have a topic you would like us to talk about, and talk about it in terms of being intuitives and humans, and we can pull our guides in, we can talk to animals, let us know. We'd be happy to address those topics. Please subscribe to this channel, share it with your family and friends. We have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. So please help us if you would be so kind to do so. We are so grateful that you are here. Appreciate each and every one of you. And if you want to subscribe on other platforms, feel completely free. And I don't think I'm leaving anything out. So with that, we will say goodbye, and we'll see you next week.